Hey guys, how are you? It's been quite a week. Number one, in Orlando, it's been freezing cold, so that's unusual. The Grammys were this past weekend. We're going to be talking about that in a few minutes. And then a movie trailer came out, a pretty, I guess you'd say important, popular, cool movie trailer came out called Michael. And it's a production that they've been working on in LA for quite a while. I know it's been delayed and postponed, but it's finally coming out in April. So the trailer was released this week, and I want to talk about that just a little bit, and then we're going to shift gears and go a different direction. So it's been a minute, but I've got my ginger tea. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you for a few minutes, kind of getting caught up here in the studio. So welcome back. My name is Brad Sundberg. The Michael trailer. It dropped, I guess, a couple days ago, and I have, a lot of you guys have probably watched it, I don't know, 75 times. Some people are saying they just play it over and over and over again. It does look really good. I think Jafar Jackson looks amazing. I don't know if I'm still sworn to secrecy or not. I don't really know, where the beginning and end is of that. But I've had minimal, and I stress that continuously, I've had minimal involvement in this project. Number one, I live in Orlando, and all the shoots are in LA. And I haven't seen Michael, since 2004. So it's been a minute, 2005, something like that. But they did, I was very minimally involved in just some of the, what's the word? Not continuity, sort of continuity, but just making sure that they've got, some of the microphones and things that we used in the studios. I gave them a list of microphones and just shared a few little insights about, what it was like working with Michael. But outside of that, if you love it, if you don't love it, whatever, my input was minimal. I'll stress that. I'm excited. I think I actually got to be on, I don't know how much this I can talk about. I'm not going to reveal anything. I mean, there's nothing really to reveal, but they did invite Deb and I to one of Deb, my wife, to one of the shoots. And I probably won't tell you which one just yet, but it was very cool. There were times that I was watching it when my mind was kind of flitting back and forth, is this Jafar or is this Michael? It was actually pretty powerful and pretty cool to at least watch. So I'm grateful for that. I'm excited about the movie. One thing that I want to talk about just a little bit is Joseph, Joe, Dad. You know that I love MJ the musical. In fact, this isn't my music room, but in my music room, I've got a bunch of the playbills from MJ the musical in different cities that we've seen it. But obviously, the relationship between Michael and his brothers and their dad is definitely worth dissecting. And I have a feeling the movie's the musical certainly digs into that. And from the looks of things, they're not shying away from that too much in the movie. I got to take a sip of tea. Hang on a second. I really only had one face-to-face encounter with Joe Jackson. I was at Havenhurst several times, and I'm sure Joe was there, but I never really, interacted with him. But there was one time during the Dangerous project at Record One, and this would have been probably 1990 or 91, something like that. And I was in the studio, the big room, I believe it was Studio B, with Bruce and Michael, just the three of us. And I don't remember what we were working on. It might have been vocal comping, but it was just the three of us. I remember that. And we used to have these office phones. You've seen those, like Panasonic or AT&T office phones. The receptionist, her name was Patty. If there's any reason in the world that Patty sees or hears this podcast, cheers, Patty. I hope you're doing well. Patty was our receptionist, and she knew that she only was going to call into the studio if it was important. If it was, somebody for Michael that she had to kind of, be the traffic cop out of the front to see who was allowed to pass their calls through to us. So the phone didn't ring very much. She was very good at her job, but the phone rang, and Patty had a really sweet voice, and she said, "Hey, there's a visitor here to see Michael. It's his dad. It's Joe Jackson. And should I let him in?" So here's how it works in the studio, Record One. You don't just walk into the studio. There were gates outside of the building. So that's where guests would call, either from the back gate or from the front gate. And then Patty or whoever the receptionist was would buzz the gate and they could come in. Then they would come into the front door of the studio. So it's kind of like two layers of security, kind of. Honestly, there was no game playing or anything like that. But I looked at Michael. He's looking at me because I'm on the phone, and I looked at him and I said, "Hey, your dad's here. Do you want me to run out and get him?" And it was literally that innocent. It was that just casual, because I didn't think about it for 2 seconds. Now, when I say that, and I don't want to make anybody feel bad, but Michael's family did not come to the studio. And you can draw your own conclusions, but when we were working on the Dangerous album, the brothers, Janet, nobody just popped into the studio. That was not a thing. And we were just kind of used to that. We didn't really talk about it too much, but yeah, it was not like Jackson's coming and going. This was Michael's world. So when I looked at Michael and I said, "Hey, your dad is here," you could almost see the color escape from his face. He got very shaken up, and I don't want to over dramatize it or anything. I'll kind of let you draw your own conclusions, but he made it very clear. Please don't let him in here. Please don't let him into the studio. And it was more emotional and frightened than that. I mean, it was like his mood just shifted, 180 degrees. And I felt really bad because here I am, the deliverer of bad news. I think Michael went to his lounge. He had his own private lounge in the back, and I don't remember. I mean, it's been quite a few years, but I think either he just kind of slumped in his chair, or he got up and kind of jogged back to his lounge. And he was nervous. Well, then who's got to go out and talk to Joe but me? So I'm 29, 28 years old. And back then, I mean, I'm kind of skinny as a rail. And so I can't send Patty out there. That's not cool. And Bruce isn't going. So I had to make the walk out down the hallway and past Patty, and Patty's kind of looking at me, and I had to go out the door, and then you make a right turn, and here's this iron gate, and there's Joe Jackson in the flesh, and he's I don't want to say menacing, but he's Joe Jackson, and he had his hands on the gate, and he's shaking the gate. And I said, "Hi, Mr. Jackson. My name is Brad Sundberg." And I don't even think he let me finish. And he said, "I want to see my son." Except it was a lot more harsh than that. I said, "I'm sorry, sir, but your son's not available right now." And again, he kind of cut me off, and he's really shaking the gate. And it was intimidating. And he's using a lot of profanity and saying, "Open this gate. I want to go see my son." And I said, "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't do that. And I have to go back to work now." And I turned around and I walked away from the gate, with him continuing to let me know what he thought of me and of the whole situation. So that was really the only face-to-face encounter I ever had with Joe Jackson. When I watched the trailer and I see him at the kitchen table and whatever it is, he's, telling the boys he can't hear them. I need you to say it louder. There's a lot of baggage there. Michael used to tell us stories about Joseph, and it was rough. And it'll be interesting how far the movie takes it, because I don't know everything. I don't want to know everything, but it was rough. It was a rough childhood, and just that 45-second encounter that I had with Joseph was a a minuscule nothing drop in the bucket of what Michael went through, what my friend Michael went through. So that's hard. I mean, I had such a great relationship with my dad. I just talked to my dad yesterday, and I love my folks, and I'm so happy that they're still around and they're doing okay. So the relationship, the background that I had with my family versus what Michael had with his dad are dramatically different. And I think MJ the Musical does a good job of showing that. And I have a feeling that the movie is going to portray it in a pretty interesting light also. So that's what I wanted to kind of talk about with the trailer. The rest of it, I mean, it looks beautiful. It's Michael being Michael. I think the way they're portraying Quincy and Bill Bray is pretty interesting. Just for the short couple little clips that I saw, Bill Bray, man, what a legend! What a unique, loving man. And if I could go back in time, and I'm being completely serious, if I could go back in time, those hours that I spent in the studio, I wished I would have maybe gotten to know Bill a little bit better. Bill was very focused on Michael. He was not, I don't want to say running the show. Michael was running the show, but Bill was very protective of Michael. But he loved us. Bill did. And he loved being in the studio. He loved being there, when Catherine and Laura would bring in their giant dinners, and Bill, it was almost like it was a bit of a joke that as soon as the foil came off the trays and it was dinner time, Bill Bray would come breezing into the door, and we loved him. We loved Bill. Like I say, if I could, there's so many things that I wish I could go back and say and do and listen and learn. And that would be one of them. Man, I would love to just sit and talk with Bill and really get, but the same, Bill was probably very guarded also. He had to be, to protect Michael. I know he liked me and trusted me, but, he wouldn't want me sitting there pumping him for info, because that's not right either. I just wish I could have gotten to know him a little bit more, just on a friendship level. I mean, we would, sit at the table, and I can't remember if Bill drank coffee or not. I'm trying to remember. I'm sure he did. We all did, except Michael. But yeah, if I could just sit back at that glass table in Record One and have a cup of coffee with Bill, I think that'd be really interesting, and I would be much more tuned into a conversation now than I was back then. What I want to talk about just for a few minutes is the Grammys. I'm going to be totally honest. I didn't even watch the Grammys this year. I'm just not as invested as I once was. So there's kind of 3 Grammy shows that I want to touch on just a little bit and give you maybe a little bit of insight. If we go way back to 1984, of course, that's the big one. That's when Michael just cleaned up on Thriller. There's 8 Grammy Awards that were awarded: Album of the Year, Record of the Year, Best Pop Vocal Male, Best Rock Vocal Male, Best R&B Song, Best R&B Vocal Performance, Producer of the Year, and then Best Recording for Children, which is E.T. the Extraterrestrial. And I'm pretty sure that Bruce Swedien won Best Engineering. I could be wrong. I don't have it right in front of me. So Michael dominates the 1984 Grammys, walks out of there with 8 Grammys, and he's on top of the world. So 1987 is when Janet was up for some Grammys for her album Control. Album of the Year, she lost to Paul Simon's Graceland. Great. If you weren't alive during this era, Graceland, however you say it. It was like an important album. And I don't need Paul Simon people, dumping on Brad Sundberg because I'm a nobody. It was okay. It was an all right record. I mean, but it was important. It was a record that we were supposed to like. And, we bought it and it's like, okay, yeah, this is going to Graceland. Okay. So Janet lost to that. She lost Best R&B Vocal Performance to Anita Baker's Rapture. Anita can sing. I'm not taking anything away from Anita Baker. I don't know. I probably resonate more a teeny bit more with Janet, but whatever. And then Best R&B Song, Janet's "What Have You Done for Me Lately," which I have right here. I have the extended dance mix, and that lost to "Sweet Love" by Anita Baker. So that's interesting. That two of Janet's songs lost to two of Anita Baker's songs. So she walked out of there empty-handed. Then in 1988, her package Control, the videos, the part two. I don't mean to laugh, but the lost to Genesis, Land of Confusion. 1990, Jimmy and Terry lost as producers to Peter Asher, and it's kind of sad. It just goes on and on and on. Janet was banging out some great music and was just not winning the awards. If we jump here to 91, Best R&B Vocal Performance, female, for her song All Right. I love that song. Again, lost to Anita Baker. And then Best R&B Song All Right, lost to You Can't Touch This by MC Hammer. MC Hammer, I mean, he's got his baggy pants and his weird little sideways walk and everything. But I don't know, as in terms of a great song, same year, 1991, Black Cat lost to, that's pretty funny, Black Cat lost to Black Velvet. And I like both songs, very different. Black Velvet's got that sultry thing going on. Black Cat, the hard rock song. So it's funny because she was banging out some great music. And so if we jump ahead to 94, Best Rhythm and Blues Song, That's the Way Love Goes, she finally won. In all those years, she was banging out some great music and just not winning. That's 1980, basically 7. So then we jump to the 1988 Grammys. And this is where I get very invested. Because now I've been with Michael for 3 years, give or take. I was there for Captain EO. And then, of course, the whole Bad album. And then Michael goes on tour. He's in Japan and Australia. There was a ton of behind-the-scenes work that we were doing while Michael was gone. We're working on Moonwalker. We're working on the music videos, the dance mixes. So, I mean, it's just MJ, MJ, MJ in my brain for a long time. Comes time for the Grammys. Michael brought Bruce and I down, and I've told this story 100 times, to Pensacola, Florida, to prep for the Grammys. Michael's going to perform 2 songs. He's going to do Man in the Mirror and The Way You Make Me Feel. We brought this recording truck down from Nashville and did the whole, I believe it was Greg Fillinganes. I'm 99% sure it was Greg Fillinganes who did, I think we call it the jazz intro to The Way You Make Me Feel. And I might even have Maddie play just a few seconds of it right here so you can kind of get a sense of what it sounds like. So you guys have if you watch the Grammys or you've seen Michael perform live, you're familiar with that version. It was just a crazy amount of work and a backstory that went into that song. We recorded Michael in a hotel room in Pensacola, Florida. Greg Fillinganes did all the little piano and rhythm arrangement. And so Bruce was down in the recording truck. I was up in the hotel room with Michael. And I think we had like radios talking back and forth. And it's a cool intro. It's an amazing intro to that song. And Michael used it over and over and over. He used it at the Grammys. He used it on the Bad Tour, the Dangerous Tour, the History Tour, and the one-offs. So he loved that intro. It was a very important piece of music that he used over and over again. So we're working on all this in Florida, Pensacola, Florida. Then Bruce and I fly up to New York. And when I start talking about these stories, in fact, I was making some notes for my book today. I just remember me and Bruce in New York, and it was my first time in New York, 1988. It would have been early 88. And Bruce and I were walking in New York, and it's Michael billboards everywhere, the Bad album, Michael coming to Madison Square Garden, and it was cold. I remember, I don't know if it was snowing, but it was really cold. Bruce and I would walk down the sidewalk together, and Bruce was terrified of the subway grates, the big grates in the sidewalk. And he would grab me by the arm. He'd like, Brady, don't walk on that. You'll fall down. And I'm like, I don't think so, Bruce. But I'm so taken aback by New York and, the buildings and the delis and the taxis and the hot dog carts and the pizza stands, the whole thing. So the whole thing was magic. Deb and I were staying. Deb came out with me, and we were staying, I think, at the Omni Park Central. I was walking down the street. I think I was heading for the studio. Bill Bray, Bill is there, obviously with Michael, but he's out shopping for shoes. Bill loved shoes. And so he's out shopping for shoes, and he sees me, and I'm not even 100% sure he knew my name. I can't remember. It didn't really matter. If Bill Bray recognizes you, you're okay. And he's like, hey, how you doing? Everything okay with your hotel? And I said, yeah. Well, it wasn't. They had us in this terrible hotel. Deb and I had twin beds, which that's where it starts. And he said, where are you staying? I said, at the Omni, but I was excited. I wasn't grumbling at all. And Bill's like, the Omni? What do you do at the Omni? I said, I don't know. That's where you guys put me. No. You need to be at the Parker Meridian. I said, okay. He said, I'm going to move you. I said, okay. So he did. He moved us to the Parker Meridian with a rooftop pool. I swam in that pool on the roof. And it was such a kind gesture. Deb and I are two young kids that we're just excited to be there. And Bill took really good care of us. So circling back to what I said a few minutes ago, I wished I could have spent a little more time with Bill and just thanked him and gotten to know him a little bit better. We're there for the Grammys. Now, I had not been nominated. Bruce was nominated. And I think Umberto Gatica was nominated. I won't go into the politics of the Grammys. Mad Forger certainly should have been nominated. A lot of us worked really hard on that record. And it would have been nice to share the Grammy nominations, but life is full of injustices, as my buddy Brad Buxer likes to say. So I didn't get nominated, but I was there. There's so many stories about the 1988 Grammys. Deb and I were there for the rehearsals. It was Radio City Music Hall, and it's empty. Security has emptied it out. The whole building is empty because Michael's going to practice, Michael Jackson. I was there. My wife Debbie was there. And that was it. And I can't remember Michael's security, what his name was, the really tall guy. It might have been Chucky, but I can't remember if Chucky was around back then. And Deb was sitting in her seat alone. The two of us are sitting in Radio City Music Hall watching Michael Jackson perform. And Michael called me up to the stage. How cool is that? Brad, can you come up here for a minute? And I came up there. It's like, what, am I going to show you how to dance? Because no. And he had a question about one of the playback tapes or something. So I'm taking some notes. And because we were still like fine tuning this thing. Bruce and I were working at the Hit Factory. and Michael's on stage at the Grammys, and we're kind of running tapes back and forth. It was a whole thing. When I'm up on the stage talking to Michael, which again is cool. When Michael Jackson calls you up by name, that's a good day. One of the Radio City security guys saw my wife and goes up and starts like telling her she has to get out of there. And I'll never forget, Michael's security guy, I think it was Chucky, walked right up and said, "She stays." And I'm just like, is this real life? This is crazy. This is so cool. I'm invested. I want Michael just to freaking dominate the Grammys. We made a great album, and Michael had an amazing performance. You can go back and watch it. I think he had the longest Grammy performance that anyone's ever done. I think. I could be wrong on that, but it was long. Now, funny side story. I couldn't go to the Grammys because there just weren't enough seats. So Deb and I watched the Grammys. I have to ask her about this sometime. I have to ask Jennifer, but we were in Jennifer Batten's hotel room with the band sitting on the floor at the Parker Meridian Hotel watching the Grammys together. And it was just like surreal. It's like I'm here with the band watching the Grammys on an album that I worked on through the course of the night, with Michael getting up and doing the slow version of The Way You Make Me Feel into the dance version, and then Man in the Mirror, and the choir coming up out of the giant elevator, and Andre Crouch going up. And it was so awkward when Andre went up and he's like tugging on Michael. Michael's just like, "Dude, let me do my thing. I'm performing right now." And then Michael just loses and loses and loses. So this is where I have to kind of cheat and look at my notes. So you have to remember, I'm up in the hotel room with Jennifer Batten and my wife and the band. I think Chris Correll was there. I don't know if Sheryl Crow was there or Saida. I can't remember. But it was them. I mean, it was the band and the singers. And here we go. Album of the year. Bad Lost. Best pop vocal performance male for the tracks Bad and Others. Lost. He was nominated in vocal categories but didn't win. He didn't win R&B performance. Smokey Robinson won that. The only thing that he won was Best Engineered Album. Him and Bruce Swedien and Umberto won that. So here we go. So Album of the Year, 1988, Joshua Tree won by U2. It's a good record. I mean, I don't remember the last time I've played it, but okay. But there was some serious stuff there. Prince's Sign of the Times, Whitney Houston's Whitney, the supergroup Trio with Dolly Parton, Linda Ronstadt, and Emmylou Harris. So they all lost to U2 Joshua Tree. Record of the year was Paul Simon, Graceland. Again, I'm not trying to pick on any Paul Simon fans, but it's all right. It's okay. Song of the Year, Somewhere Out There by James Horner, Barry Mann, and Cynthia Well, performed by Linda Ronstadt and James Ingram. Isn't that song that Mouse sings? Isn't that from that movie, with the mice or whatever it is? It's a nice song. That was Song of the Year. Sting won, Jody Watley won, U2 won. Michael just got annihilated. Michael, the only one to walk out of there with an award was Bruce. So why is that? I think MJ fatigue is the big one. I think he had won so much, and I think it surprised everybody what he did a few years earlier, that, there may have been a bit of overexposure in terms of the Grammy voters. In terms of the public, they're buying that crazy album like crazy. But in terms of the Grammy voters, maybe it was a little much. I think Bad's an amazing collection of songs. And for MJ fans, there's not a whole lot of skips. Of course, you guys don't listen to CDs anymore, most of you. But it's kind of banger after banger on that record. There was speculation about whether a black artist dominating again, like he did with Thriller, might have faced some resistance. There's certainly plenty of people that have written college theses and all kinds of stuff to that effect. Was America really ready to embrace a black artist as firmly as they did, or were the voters ready to? I don't know. I'm not trying to be the expert here. So at the end of the day, they didn't give me anything, which is pretty interesting. And I remember, I don't remember minute for minute, but I remember being in that room with Jennifer Batten and my wife. I'm sure Rory Kaplan, Chris Carell, probably Greg, and there just being this kind of heaviness, because here they are. This is their guy. They're going to go on stage with him at Madison Square Garden like the next night. And there was just this heaviness in the room about, we love this album, we love this artist, and why don't the Grammys embrace him? So that's, I don't come at you with any big platitudes of here's what I think happened. It was just kind of interesting to do just a mini deep dive into it. I will say that there was just a general sense of disappointment kind of among Team MJ about why the 88 Grammys were such a disaster. His performance was remarkable. The audience reception was over the top. The album sales were ridiculous. The tour was ridiculous. If you want to do your own little deep dive, especially some of you that were too young for the Bad tour, Michael looked great. He sounded great. The whole thing, it was just a well-oiled machine. For whatever reason, the Grammys just didn't show him any love that year. So that's what I've got. I'm going to go into more detail. Believe it or not, I know I've talked about this for way too long, but I've got about 200, not chapters, but 200 concepts that I'm working on in my book. And it takes a while to organize all of those and kind of get them right where I want them. But the 88 Grammys, I think, are an interesting kind of tangent to run down and kind of look at. So I just wanted to check in with you guys and hang out for a little bit. We've got some cool events coming up. We're going to be in Paris in mid-March. We're going to be in New York at the Old Hit Factory end of March with my buddy Tony Black. Tony's an absolute wonderful guy. Great. He's a Grammy winner, Grammy-winning engineer, producer, and he was there for a good chunk of the History album. So we're going to be spending a lot of time talking to Tony in New York at the Hit Factory. Now it's called Fount Studios, but it's still the Hit Factory to me. And then in April, we are doing it. We're heading to Bucharest. I'm waiting to finalize a couple details, but we're going to put tickets on sale as soon as possible because I want to give people time to have time to plan and travel, and what a weekend that's going to be. So we're working on that as quick as we can. But have a great week. Listen to some Michael music, get ready for the Michael movie, and thanks for hanging out with me in our little studio here. Have a great week. God bless. Take care. In the Studio, the podcast is produced by Maddie Sundberg. Theme music performed by Buddy Nuanez. Artwork by Andy Healy. Studio electronics provided by Golden Age Project, and studio acoustics provided by Acoustic Sciences Corporation. My name is Brad Sundberg. Thanks so much for hanging out with us in the studio.